Uh, hi everybody. So this is my topic for today. It's how I learned to write React within the Reason. It's not a language, but whatever. How many people know what's Reason here? Oh, how many people have tried it out? Nice. So I think I'm speaking to a good audience about this. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Pavithra. That's my Twitter handle. You can find me there. So I like JavaScript, of course. So this is a sketch note I did about myself. So believe it or not, there's a sketch note conference happening in Hamburg right today. If it was tomorrow, I would have gone there. So I got really inspired. So they were marketing their conference with all the members putting out a sketch note selfie of themselves. And this is what I came up with. So yeah, I'm Pavithra. I like cats. I like to travel. I like JavaScript and so on. So one more thing you might be interested to know about me. I work at Atlassian. It's in Sydney, and I started work a month back there. So yeah, I'm going through stuff. Um, so the puns just write themselves, I think, with this talk. So I'm here to talk about a meta language called Reason. We'll see what it is much later. Uh, what I did was basically, so from a month, I've been using Flow at work. So I really like the typing. So, but it's a bummer that it's optional. So I was in the market looking for alternatives that compile to JavaScript. And I decided to use this first. I know there are many others, and yeah, don't bash me, I don't know anything about them. This is one that I tried out first, and I tried it out mainly because they advertised an interop with React. So let's like get on with it. So what does Reason advertise? What do they say they provide to us? Um, yeah. So they say it's JavaScript friendly. I'm a JavaScript developer. I don't know anything about the ML languages. I don't know Lisp. But I know a JavaScript. I've been developing with it for 8 years. So it's JavaScript friendly. I'm a JavaScript developer. So let me try it. Typing, they put high emphasis on static typing. They do inference. Apparently, you don't even need to write all the types. So this is what they advertised. And it interrupts very well with JavaScript. So you can pull JavaScript into your Reason. You can pull Reason into your JavaScript, and so on. And overall, they promise a great developer experience with speed included and low configuration and so on. But before we talk about what Reason is, there is a bit of history you have to know. I wish I didn't have to know it, but yeah. So the history goes there's a language called OCaml. So this is a language that was developed in, I think, 1996 by Xavier Leroy, I think his name was. So he's this research scientist, and this was, I think, one of his projects in showcasing how a language can be. So OCaml is, so there existed Camel before that and so on. Mostly this is a class of language called meta languages. I think they're called like that because you can create a lot of domain languages out of it. But yeah, feel free to correct me. So there was ML, there's standard ML, and there's Camel, and OCaml basically, so these are functional languages, right? So in OCaml, you can write object-oriented stuff too, and it brought all this type inference along with it. So what is OCaml? It's mostly an academic language. Apparently they even teach it. It boasts of industrial strength typing. That's what they wrote on their community page. They have a nice module system. Every file is a module, or you can namespace it and so on. Yeah, they have something called algebraic data types. It's a fancy word, but I'll show you later. They're really nice types. And you can pattern match on them. So you can say, you can provide variants for a certain type. You can say it's limited to this set of variants, and you can match all these variants, and it'll give you pretty nice tooling around it. So Yeah, it's a bit dry, but you need to know this. I have one more thing that you need to know before I get to reason, and that's buckle script. So buckle script, why do you need to know about it? Because there's some configuration related to it, and there is some stuff that you have to do related to buckle script when it comes to reason. So it's better that you know about it. Buckle script is basically a compiler of sorts, something like, okay, it is a compiler which does OCaml to JavaScript conversion. So you give it some OCaml code and it's able to create pretty readable JavaScript, and they're right at that. So what it does is compile OCaml to JavaScript. It's super fast. So the author's I think his main reason to build this is that he wanted to make it really fast, and there's the whole thing behind it. It spits out pretty readable JavaScript. Since OCaml has modules, you get JavaScript modules out of it, you get different files of JavaScript modules. And buckle script allows you to do this interop that we were talking about, right? Whatever reason depends on. That it allows you to get JavaScript code into the OCaml code, get OCaml code into the JavaScript code, and we'll see how this works. So I don't know how you do with OCaml, but let's get to reason. So reason. I think, so there are a few companies around the world who use OCaml. The ones that I know of use it for financial software. I guess it works best for them. So now these people are trying to get into building, I think, web applications with OCaml, and that's why buckle script exists. So you write in OCaml, you convert it into JavaScript, run it in the browser. But OCaml is not a syntax that's very friendly to newcomers, and JavaScript, I think there are no relations there, except that it has modules, I think. But I'm not an expert on it. So, but I think the existence of reason shows that OCaml syntax is not so acceptable. So what reason does? Reason is not a new language, it's just syntax over OCaml. That's what they call it. It's a toolchain and new syntax for OCaml. So now that we know all these things, we know it has great typing and things, let's see what's reason react. So now reason, we have reason, and reason can be converted to OCaml, OCaml can be converted to JavaScript that we can put it in our browser. So now that we have reason, we want all our libraries from NPM to work with it, right? So one of the things that they did was they wrote bindings such that, so they used all these interop methods and stuff and wrote bindings such that React can be written with reason syntax. So it's one of the many, many JS bindings. So how I kind of like to understand it, feel free to correct me. So I like to understand that reason kind of spits out OCaml, which kind of can be compiled into native compilation or JavaScript, and React directly spits out JavaScript, right? So if you want all the Reactness in your reason, so that's when you use reason React. So yeah, I'm going to be very brave here and try to write some code. But don't worry, I have a copy of that whole thing if something goes wrong. So yeah. So how do you start with the reason application? If you want to try this out? So as a disclaimer, this talk is basically going to be my evaluation of how, so whenever there's something new and I have the time and I want to go check it out, I have a reason to go explore it, then this is what I do, and I form my impressions out of it, and this talk is basically going to be about that. I'm not going to tell you one way or other whether it's good or not, but I think if you see me code in it, you will see the pain points and the good points of it together. So let's look at what a reason application looks like. So this, you need not hand code it, you can generate it. There's a create React reason React app, and there's reason CLI, and the project is moving really fast. So I think today to tomorrow you'll find many different things, new things in the ecosystem. Okay. So a reason application, basically what will have, one of the advantages of using this is it totally conforms to your NPM whatever workflow that you have. So you need not, I think 5 months back or something when I looked at it, it had a heavy dependency on OPAM, and OPAM did not work well on my computer. I had trouble installing it, and that's when I'd given up. But on relooking now, they are much more NPM friendly. So it's not much, but yeah, it's easy to start with it. So you have package.json. So here, basically what I have are a React DOM. Then I have, can everybody see this? Or yeah, I think that's better, no? Yeah. So it's going to have reason React. These are like dependencies that your app has to depend on it. Then these are like dev dependencies, what you have. This whole Babel thing here is what I got to have to get React and JSX to work. It's not really needed in a reason application, but for my demo, I needed it. What you need basically is a buckle script platform for your development. So this is what basically gives you a watch over your reason files, and it creates React and JavaScript files out of it. Webpack is just there to like bundle all the JavaScript that's generated. It's you don't have to get heavily into it. You can either like run reason with only the buckle script commands, and you can like map them to an npm script command and run them. Or you can use this BS loader for Webpack, of course. And it does a lot of work for you. But I feel it kind of slows it down. But yeah, that's what it does. Now you have your package.json. You kind of have to know about this because it's there. There's a BS config required, even though the reason team says that they don't really advertise or encourage people to have a lot of configuration around it. But BS config is a minimum requirement. So you have your name. So this React JSX is what gives you JSX powers inside reason. And the super errors enhances the errors apparently. And yeah, don't ask me too much about it, but yeah, I know it exists, and I kind of know that it's not too large. Yeah, so this is where you declare a BS dependency, right? So your buckle script needs to look at this. So if you're writing reason React Native, then you would put that binding here. So let's like get into it, right? So I created an index HTML. This is like standard what you would do for a React application. You have a root div, and I'm pointing it to a bundle.js. So my Webpack config has learned to look at both reason files and JS files, and then like put it into a bundle. So one thing about reason is like editor support is awesome. So it has this thing called Merlin. So you just have to follow the instructions on the website, and your editor is Go for reason. So let's start with it. So now I'm creating .re files. We are into it. So reason, let me open node modules here because I just want to, want to show you something here. So reason React is the dependency we have, right? So what it exposes is these things. You have a substitute for the DOM. Then, so majorly you need to know that you have a substitute for DOM. There's something to do with events, and there's something to do, and there's the reason React about scope. So let's start with it. So this basically is where I'll start. Yeah. The React DOM and render to element is pretty similar to what we do with the React DOM render method, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expect it to put my example component into the root div. So this example doesn't exist right now, so I'm getting a build error. So this is my Webpack running with BS loader on it. So I'm getting a build error that there's no example at all. So let me just code it up quickly for you. What this will give is just an element with some text on it. So I think by going through that itself, we'll kind of learn how reason works. So how would you create a component in reason? You would say something like reason react dot stateful, stateless, and there are many kinds. and you would give it a name. Now, how do you write render for this? So reason what it does is it looks for a make function. This make function will get all the props that that component expects. And what it will do, what it needs to do at least, is have the component that you created up there. Then now you can, okay, I'm saying, yeah. Now you can have a render function. So what does the render function look like? So render function has basically, so the underscore here I found out a little bit the hard way. So if you don't have that, and since this is an unused variable, the compiler warns you of it. So one way to escape that is this, but otherwise the type system screams at you if you don't use it. So yeah, so here I'm going to have a self, which is kind of the this for reason. And let me create a div. This is like JSX straight up, right? This is an example. Does that work? So see, the editor basically tells me all these types, but yeah, you can like follow whenever it's relevant to you. So now I have my first error, I think. So example.make doesn't work. So this is one of a part of the reason React syntax that you have to convert this string into, yeah, let me just look this up. Yeah, I think you have to do something like string to element and pass this. Yeah, this is one of the things that you have to do with this, and my build passed here. So let's just see. So all you have to do to see this working is, yeah, open the file. So we have my text there, right? So we have our first React reason example officially. Yeah. Let's do something a little more fun. I promise it will not be too complicated. Let's try to write a controlled input component with this so that we see how actions work, right? So again, we start with our component. Reason react dot. So what do you so this was up to some time ago, you needed to use a stateful component, but now it's changing so fast that you need to use something called reducer component. So what you do is declare it like this. I'll show you how this works anyways. So let me children. I personally like the functional components style. I don't know, I've come to like it, I think. So let's declare an initial state for this. It's going to be a function that doesn't take anything, and it's just going to return an input string. We'll create whatever, so the end result is we are going to input something into an input box, and it's going to like get bound and put into the state, and you can like access it from elsewhere. So yeah, so now it's complaining. It says unbound record. So this basically means that there's no type for it. Yeah, the documentation is a bit sparse. So let me create a type for it. So type for my state is what? Input string, which is of course a string, semicolon. Yeah, I'll write. So it's basically complaining that I haven't written the reducer and I haven't handled an action at all in this, so it's not a reducer component. So let me render I think we will use self here because we need the state. So this self that comes to the render function has various things inside. It has the whole state, it has a reduce function and so on, and we'll see how to use it. So let me make a div, and I'll have an input. So one of the things that I learned, that I looked a lot and learned, was that type is a reserved word here, so you can't use input type text, you got to use underscore there. That's just how it's done. So we'll have a value. So the value here is self.state.input string, right? It's a control component. We will only get the value from one way. So I can even like destructure this here. I can say state and I can say input string and only use this. Cool. Now for the main part, right? So on change of this, sorry. On change of this, I need to pass some kind of action. However, so the way you do it in reason is you say reduce, which is present in your self. So you use this reduce. Yeah, let me bring this down. So you say reduce and you pass it a function which basically dispatches your action. So my function has, and this function will get the event out of it. So I basically want to dispatch a change action. Yeah, but there is no change action there, right? So let's like, so this is what they call the algebraic data type. So where you can kind of define, so this data type can go like change, click, and whatever, right? Whatever action you can think of there. So let me just keep it to change for now. I don't know what happened here. So okay, we'll figure it out. So now there's no reducer that's handling this action. Huh. So let's write a reducer. So this, you have Redux built into it. So kind of the only way, there's no this dot set state. The only way you can like manipulate state inside this reason react component is through this whole cycle of dispatching an action, catching it in the reducer, making a change to the state, and updating the state. And everything is immutable too. So you can't really make change, you have to make an update. So the reducer here, yeah, just like if you know Redux, I'm not assuming you will know, but I think it's a simple enough concept that it gets the action and the state. So you have this. Now what do you do? So this is where the pattern matching comes in. So there are brackets around here, which I couldn't figure out for a long time. So you can match this to the change action, and you can say reason react dot update. Let's have a new input string. So I'm going to, since we didn't pass anything out there, I'm going to like keep this my name. I still don't know why this isn't working. Yeah, I'll look into my thingy I have here. I have the whole thing written. Yeah, reduce has changed. Okay. Yeah, I never know where to put brackets and things like that. Yeah. I'll go ahead. Okay, cool. This isn't working for some reason. Yeah. It'll remove it, right? No. Function state. Yeah, this is the curly I don't need actually. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just copy and paste it. I swear I practiced this. Yeah, but it's hard. So, yo. What do I have here? This is my curly. This is the. Oh, yeah. So reduce, let's do this again. So I have an event and I'm sending change. Yeah. So let's see this work, right? No? Okay. So I'm expecting something. It's okay. Let's like get this whole thing from here, I think. Yeah. So, so we had our own thing here, and so now you want to send some value to it. So this was the hardest part that I found in this, that you want to send the event.target.value. So how do you get this out in Reason? So don't even like I don't even understand, but this is how you do it. So it requires that you convert the event into some form of record that it can understand. So you use the React DOM-re, you make the DOM element into an object, you get the event, and then this is buckle script syntax to get the value out of it. So once you have the value, you have your change, you can send it along with the event. So this requires a change in the type for the action. And so yeah, this should work now. No? Okay. Why this isn't working? We'll get this to happen here. Yeah, I think maybe I just needed to do that time. Let's see. Yay. So yeah, one more last thing that I wanted to show with it, since there's so much talk about interop, so I wanted to see how this really interops with your normal JavaScript. So I attempted to make this Reason component work with JavaScript. So what you need to do there is add this. It has syntax to say how you can wrap Reason for JS. It has the opposite syntax to how you can wrap JS for Reason. And this is how they do it. You say reason.react and then wrap the JSON, wrap the JS, and then you say component, which is the component that you declared earlier. And if there's any props, you can send it to them. You basically directly call the make function and put that in a JS component. So how do you use this JS component? That's like straightforward. You just import it like you would import any other functionality out of a library. So yeah, you say input, then you get the input thing out. And so let me just create this here, right? So form.js. And one thing that the Webpack loader kind of improved for me was, before you had the Webpack loader, you kind of had to get this input from the generated JavaScript. So how buckle script basically works is it has all these Reason files, looks at them, it goes and creates a lib folder and puts all your Reason generated JavaScript files into that folder here. Earlier I would have to reach into the JS folder and get this input, but now that it's a Webpack loader, Webpack understands what I'm asking for, and it kind of, I just need to point to my local thing. So let me make this the source for Webpack, I think. Yeah, and then start this again. Yeah, I have a form, I have it on root, and I have index HTML, I have the bundle. My Webpack takes from form. Can you see? I have a bundle.js, everything. Yeah. So let's just move on. It's a new thing. So impressions. Yeah, so as hard as a time as you saw me having here, I had a harder time learning it. Documentation is sparse, and you just have to go into the code and see how they've done it. But thankfully, there's a lot of resources now. It's mostly in terms of code bases, how people have implemented it. So my impressions on this, I'm a big fan of types. I kind of, so yeah, it's kind of opened I don't know why I haven't used types before at all. It's kind of like, I don't know, like finding a new language for yourself, I think. If you haven't used types and you start using types, and you just see how many, all the possibilities that are possible, right? That with what analysis can do for you, why you don't need like linting anymore, you don't need flow config anymore, and you don't you kind of realize how easy it makes life for you, and you kind of like empathize with all these developers, right, who don't like JavaScript and who are trying to make OCaml work with JavaScript or Ruby work with JavaScript and so on. Kind of empathize when you see types. I hope it comes to JavaScript. BuckleScript is pretty fast. So when I use BuckleScript, like naked BuckleScript, I just called the BS commands and did. I didn't even have to look back, but I don't know how we would make hot model reloading work. So with that caveat, functional components, I really enjoy writing them. Yeah, and I hope this becomes default in React somehow. The editor support for reason is pretty rad. It shows you about, like when you saw in the code this thing, right? It shows you what these types are, what types you're using whenever you're using any variable. And yeah, it's so cool that the types are so cool that did you know BuckleScript has no source map support at all right now, and even though I'm sure it's not changed, right? There are no source maps for this, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I tried looking for them, I didn't find. But if my program works, if the compiler says yes, your program works, it usually just works. I didn't have to debug anything. The interop stories, I'm not a big fan. So number one, yeah, I didn't really like all the syntax that you have to do to get these things. I wish they were like hidden away from me. It was just part of the language. I didn't need to know whether I'm putting my hands into the DOM object, or I don't need to make a string into, yeah, at least that's how I felt. There's also another layer of these interop that not only you're using reason React syntax, you're also using BuckleScript syntax, and that's straight up, I don't know. So basically you have things like, if you want to directly get raw JavaScript into yours, you can like evaluate with bs.eval. So you say @ bs eval, and you say @ bs scope to get something from a module, and so on. So yeah, interop story is still up. I think scope for improvement. There's no source map support. I would like to ideally debug my reason code and not JavaScript. I think if we get source map, probably it'll be JavaScript only. But yeah, that's why BuckleScript, I think they say they give you readable JavaScript so that you can debug them later. There's a learning curve. There's definitely a learning curve. However easy it is for JavaScript developers to directly take it up, take reason up, there is a learning curve. If you have not worked with TypeScript or Flow before, there's a huger learning curve. And generally the syntax is different. You don't know where to put your curlies or your brackets, and you got to learn all that stuff if you don't have any background. I don't know, I felt that I would, if I could, write libraries with reason and then like put it in NPM so that my consumer doesn't even know it's reason. He's just using this library as a React component, and any development that goes on in the library is all type safe, and I know that library is a very stable one. So I don't know, that's what I think I would do. So coming to the last part of it, these are kind of the references that I found. Of course, there's obvious references to the documentation, which I've linked to in my slides of each of them, BuckleScript and OCaml and all of this. There's these things that I found extra interesting. So the story of BuckleScript is a post from the guy who wrote BuckleScript, like why he wrote it, and it's pretty interesting. It kind of gives you an insight into what these OCaml developers are into. So there's this person called Jacob Bass, who's a huge propagator of reason, I think. These were the only videos I found where somebody talked about reason in some understandable way. He also has a repository of a reason workshop. So if you just go through each of the problems in that, it's pretty well defined actually. I think he gives this workshop in places, but it was very useful for me to go through that, and it ends up with making a tic-tac-toe game. There's an awesome tutorial to Reason React, though I feel it's a little outdated, but with the speed that this project is moving. Cheng Lu is one of the core maintainers of this project, and he even replies to you on Discord if you ask him like questions. So he developed a Mario game. It's pretty cool. You can play with it. It's like real Mario. And that's the whole thing with reason. So if you are into things like that, you can see how the types were written, how the program was written. But the main reason I got into Reason was because I saw this talk by the Reason Vienna group. So there's a Reason ML group in Vienna, I guess. They hacked together over the course of many meetups a tic-tac-toe game. So so I was working on a tic-tac-toe game for myself using React, and I found certain things hard. And when I saw their model, it was all in the types folder, right? So they had their whole game state, everything defined upfront, and I wish I had thought that way while developing my tic-tac-toe game. And yeah, it kind of like made it more attractive to me. Like, okay, types kind of force you to think of your application beforehand, before you start writing the actual code. So that's how I actually got into this. So yeah, if you haven't evaluated Reason, there I have evaluated for you. So you can take your call, whether you like it, whether you want to see more of it. And the project is still in a lot of flux. There's a lot of still syntax changes even being made. So all of the things that I had a problem with, they are issues in the GitHub. There are already issues for that in the GitHub, and probably they'll get to it pretty soon. So yeah, that's about it. That's Reason for you, and thanks a lot.